Potentially in 71 days or less, Putin is ready to sacrifice 7 more million people. He just does not want to give up or acknowledge he was wrong. Putin also started to directly threaten Poland, saying that all these territories was just a gift from Stalin. And at the same time, just regular fighting Russians in the east, they already started practically to beg Ukrainians to stop. And Ukrainians, on the other hand, they created these new and very smart tactics. But more about all this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's get straight to the point and talk about some ridiculous Russian propaganda. So, long story short, if you remember from my yesterday's video, high school kids in Russia will start learning the history of relations between the West and Russia and why Russia had to start this special military operation. But Russian authorities decided to go even further. For example, according to the governor of Belgorod region, Mr. Gladkov, starting next studying season, school kids and also kids in kindergarten will be studying the basics of territorial defense. I mean, imagine a kid like 5 years old or less learning how to protect himself against enemies from beyond the border. In addition to that, once again, those high school kids in Russia, starting next year, they will learn how to operate drones. I mean, I just cannot come up with this it is just pure insanity. Literally, they are already studying to become soldiers. Right away after finishing schools, they will be forced to go to enlistment offices and sent to Ukraine. Putin just does not want to give up that easy, looks like. But jokes aside, these are just a few things that hint us that the regime of Putin is planning to do another partial mobilization, most likely within the next couple of months. So let's briefly talk about this right now, then we'll talk about Putin threatening Poland before going to the south and the east of Ukraine, where Russians are practically begging Ukrainians to stop, and this new smart tactic of Ukrainians. So yes, additional initiative from the Russian authorities is that those people who participated in the special military operation, it will be much easier for them to enroll in the universities. In fact, they will even be given additional points. Then we have already a relatively familiar thing, is that starting July 11th, which pretty much it's already happening, those Russian men who do not show up in the military enlistment office after being summoned, they'll be prohibited to drive cars. Long story short, their driving licenses are now suspended. And well, even private businesses are neither safe. For example, the Ministry of Defense of Russia can just randomly call a certain percentage of employees from any company, and then this company has to comply or pay pretty big fines. And so what Russian companies decided to do is to hire so-called volunteers, is that in case there is a request from the Ministry of Defense of Russia, these will be the people to be enlisted in the army. The next thing I'm gonna tell you, please pay attention, is something that I kept for a couple of weeks because I knew in the future this will be completely refuted and tried to be forgotten by the Russian authorities. So, we have this representative of Russian State Duma, Andrei Kartapolov, who said that don't worry, there will be no another partial mobilization because Wagner left Ukraine. Don't worry about this at all. I mean, if Russian authorities say something, this must be true, right? And well, fast forward couple of weeks later, the very same State Duma started proposing military-related laws, such as, for example, if you get married, if you change your permanent address, you have to notify the local authorities, otherwise there will be a big penalty. And at the same time, if Russian companies try to hide their employees, the fines are going to be extremely expensive. All this is basically done so Russian men do not have a place to hide. And then even the same Kartapolov himself, he said that the lowest age to be summoned to the military will remain 18 years old, not 21 previously proposed, and the upper age is about 30. And I simply cannot believe he even said it, but what he said is that we decided to keep 18 as the minimum age. It is because you guys wanted it. We have so many volunteers who want to go to the army, to Ukraine, right after they finish school. Honestly, I do not know any friends I have like this. And well, as a result of all this, just recently State Duma finally acknowledged that yes, another partial mobilization is kinda possible? Because, like Russia needs some people to protect its international interests, we need to kinda win in this war, special military operation, so don't be surprised if it happens, because we need you. And just something that might sound unrelated at first, but yet another very loud critic of Putin, Igor Strelkov, has been just detained. At this very moment he is being detained and questioned due to extremism charges. And if you remember in the past, for example Navalny, this guy was detained before, long before Russia invaded Ukraine. So that in case Putin makes some very unfavorable decisions, there will be no one for regular Russian people to unite around against the regime of Putin. So just please, let me know in the comments if it also looks to you like Russia is preparing another round of mobilization, or if everything just seems normal. Because, it's not a secret that Russia is losing in Ukraine. There's not too many soldiers left to rotate the fresh one and the old ones, and in no way, absolutely in not a single universe, Putin will be ready to acknowledge that he was wrong and to be defeated. And sacrificing millions more Russian lives will be absolutely easy decision for him to make. Because recently Leonid Slutsky, one of representative of LDPR, he said that yes, let's make a contract army of 7+ million people if possible. Obviously he was not the one who came up with this proposal, most likely it was sent to him somewhere from above. Because after all, the Soviets under Stalin lost more than 20 million people during the Second World War, and Putin always uses this as an example of a great sacrifice of a great nation in favor of the great victory. The next conscription cycle in Russia is set to happen in approximately 70 days on October 1st, but this partial mobilization might happen way sooner. And just of course, in case it does happen, there will be a massive escalation, and I will be here to report you on every single step along the way. Because I try my best to find the freshest news possible and make these reports daily, so in case you want to stay updated, just please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. You can also follow me on Instagram, because I'm doing a big project behind the scenes and I'll try to make updates on my Instagram. The link is down below. But okay, now literally just a couple of words about the Western military support and Putin literally threatening Poland. Then we'll go to the east, where Russians are practically begging Ukrainians to stop, and we'll finalize everything with the south with this new, pretty smart tactics by Ukrainians. And first of all, right here we have the very first official video with English subtitles, where Ukrainians are using the cluster ammunition from the US. The full version is not available on YouTube due to some material that they're showing. That is why the full version is on my Patreon. The link is down below and there's still 1 week of free access. Next we have a video of several armored combat vehicles called Spartan, and Ukraine is set to receive approximately 40 of them. Then we have the country of Germany with its next military support package to Ukraine, which will include 10 Leopard tanks, hundreds of thousands of first aid kits, trucks and ammunition. Our next country is once again the United States of America, which says that Ukraine might receive F-16 planes before the end of this year, which definitely shows how much the narrative of America changed in regards to these fighter jets. And speaking about the aerial vehicles and the air defense, in case Ukraine is set to receive all the Western air defense systems, such as NASAMS, IRIS-T Patriots, this map shows you how much coverage of the protection zone will be above Ukraine. And well, what is the response of Russia and specifically Putin? Well, in this most recent meeting, he said that Ukrainian counteroffensive is not moving at all. Ukraine is already suffering tens of thousands of losses, and all this Western military equipment, it is even way easier to destroy it rather than those Ukrainians previously had. Putin then also added that in case there is an aggression against Belarus, for some reason, Russia will be protecting this country, but then he made the most outrageous statement. For absolutely unknown reason he started talking about Poland, And what he basically said is that the territories of Poland were gifted to this country by Stalin whenever separating Germany. Russia did not forget this statement, and Russia in the future might remind Poland about this historic fact. He was pretty much threatening Poland to take their lands away from them as well. But okay, and now as promised, let's briefly talk about the situation in the east of Ukraine, where Russians at this point are practically begging Ukrainians to stop, and then we'll move to the south with these new smart tactics by Ukrainians. And just the first stop we have to make is in between the border between Belarus and Ukraine, where according to Serhiy Naev, he does see the presence of approximately several thousand Wagner soldiers, but they will not be capable of launching massive offensive from the north, maybe just a couple of diversion groups per week, per month maximum. And then we have more unfortunate news from Chernihiv, which has been attacked by Russians recently, and there are unfortunately casualties among civilians. Next we go to the actual east of Ukraine, where according to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, both Russians and Ukrainians are engaged in active combat hostilities along Kupiansk-Svatovo-Kreminna front line, with neither of the sides achieving yet any meaningful success, and Ukrainians are still pushing next to Bakhmut with some relatively quite small achievements so far. And speaking about Bakhmut, right here I have the entire 1 hour video from the inside of the city, which shows us close combat footage and all the activities that Ukrainians are doing right now. So the weekend is coming, and if you have nothing to watch during the weekend, I decided to upload this documentary completely for free on my Patreon. The link is down below. Right, next we have this incredible engineering decision by the Russian soldiers, which is just this light fence on top of this combat vehicle, which I have no idea what it's supposed to protect against, because as soon as we go down to Krasnohorivka, as you can see, the very same combat vehicle has been completely destroyed as a result of a Ukrainian attack. So, to say the least, it didn't work. And in addition to that, in the very same Krasnohorivka, Ukrainians also used their cluster munition, and they were able to destroy a concentration of Russian forces along with their ammunition warehouse. And just overall, in the last 24 hours, a total of 10 artillery units, 2 air defense systems, 2 electronic warfare systems, and other 4 important military targets of Russians have been destroyed. But without a doubt, one of the most interesting things that happened recently is that Russians were sending this munition towards Ukrainians, which are containing propagandistic materials, saying that Ukrainians, let's stop fighting, it's meaningless, let's prevent even more people eliminating each other, let's just stop it. I mean, when you know that your enemy is pushing and you know that you will not be able to repel them, I think this is yes, one of the last things you want to do, because at this point, every single attempt counts, right? But okay, and now let's briefly go over the south and talk about these new smart tactics of Ukrainians. But first of all, unfortunately, we have to mention that there has been yet another attack against ports in Odessa, and this time approximately 100 tons of peas and 20 tons of barley have been destroyed. Next, we once again refer to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, which claims that Ukrainians resumed their offensive next to Vuhledar. Then some intense combat activities are happening between Zaporozhye and Donetsk front lines, some more hostilities are happening to the south of Orikhiv, and then overall just in the western parts of Zaporozhye region. And as we go down back to the south of Orikhiv, Ukrainians were reportedly able to destroy 2 multiple launch rocket systems of Russians called Grad. And at the same time, Ukrainians were also able to eliminate a Russian firing position inside their trenches next to Novokakhovka on the left side of Dnipro River. And right here is the most ridiculous part. So, according to Russian propagandists, one of their tanks in the Zaporozhye front line experienced some kind of major malfunction, and it was completely destroyed as a result of this, as you can see from this video. It is just, the loud noise is so big, you want to see the full version, it is on my Patreon as always. And to sum it all up, Ukrainians came up with a pretty smart and very simple new strategy, or tactics. So long story short, whenever some people within platoon or a brigade or battalion, whenever these people, they know some local territories, because they used to live in these settlements, these people might become very close advisors to the military commandment. And the reason for this, it is because such people know precisely every single meter of these territories, and they will have double motivation to liberate it. Because, I mean, imagine, they used to live there, now Russian occupied these territories, and the reason they're fighting is to liberate literally their homes. So this just shows you yet another truly simple but genius strategy that Ukrainians are trying to employ, because, I mean, in order to win, sometimes the more simple things, it is what it takes to win. And so yes, Russians and Putin himself, they do see that Ukrainians are more successful in this war, so potentially there will be another major and probably final escalation from the Russian side, which will mean once again this another partial mobilization, maybe way more than 300,000 people as the first one. And yes, as always, I will be here to report as always, I will be here to report this news for you guys. So just please, if you don't want to miss them, if you want to stay updated, just please consider subscribing to my channel. Only takes one click. The absolutely best way to support my work is through my Patreon. You can also become my channel member and unlock channel perks, or simply use a PayPal link. Everything can be found to the right and down below. Thank you so much for your attention, товарищи. Please follow me on Instagram. Beware there are scammers in the comments, and see you on Tuesday.